Hey guys, it's Sam and this is my 2018 Book Awards. So these are my favorite books of the year. If you guys are new to me in my end of the year videos, every year I do the book awards where I put books into different categories. This is based on a tag that Kayla of Bookadoodles originally created, so I'll link her video down below. I've kind of morphed it over the years a little bit, but I like talking about books this way because it helps me identify why I liked a lot of these books. I mean, a lot of them overlap and you'll see a lot of them in the different categories and stuff, but I just think it's more fun than your straightforward, like, here's one book, here's one book, here's one book. So, this is the first of the 2018 wrap-up videos. So I have this video, I'm doing a disappointing reads video coming up, I'm doing my favorite and least favorite couples all ranked. I have my 2018 reading wrap-up with all of my stats and things, and then my 2019 goals and TBR stuff, and then I also have videos on my personal channel about my 2018 goal wrap-ups for all things not book related, and then my 2019 goals. So it's a plethora. I just want to tell you how great this month is gonna be for me because I like making these videos, and for you if you enjoy watching them. But let's get into the 2018 Book Awards. So the first category is favorite male protagonist, and that would have to be Victor Vale from Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I have not yet read Vengeful. Calm down. It took me like 4 years to read Vicious, okay? So I'm gonna probably read Vengeful in 2019, but it took me a long time to even read this, and I just want to sit with this for a while. But Victor Vale, I went into this knowing that I probably would like Victor. I've known things about this book before reading it. And I was like, resist. Because you don't just want to be an easy target like that. But as soon as I saw him on the page, I'm like, oh, I love you. Victor is definitely an anti-hero, kind of an anti-villain. He embraces his villainy, and he's a sociopath. And I love him. My favorite female protagonist goes to Nona from Grey Sister and Red Sister by Mark Lawrence. This series is going to come up a lot within these book awards, but when I was thinking of protagonists that I loved and that have stuck with me, no other female protagonist has stuck with me as much as Nona has. Also, I feel like this year I read a lot of ensemble casts, so I didn't feel like I had these standout female protagonists as much as I have in previous years, but Nona is who I love and adore, and you get to follow her throughout her life with this series, and I always pull for her, and I love her, and she's another character who's kind of like an anti-villain, anti-hero, and she grows and learns so much, and I just really deeply enjoy her character arcs and her relationships with other people, and her deep sense of loyalty. That is something that just really speaks to me because that is one of my deep core values, is loyalty, and she is so that. Friendship means more to her than anything, and I just deeply adore her. And it's a nice juxtaposition because she's also a magical assassin nun. Then we have favorite plot twist. And this was difficult because I feel like I read a lot of books where there's a plot twist at the end, and I don't like being like, oh, this one big plot twist, because then people are looking for the twist the whole time. So I think I'm gonna talk about Vicious a little more again. Not so much for just plot twists, but that the twists and turns that this book takes were things that I wasn't really expecting, and I was always on the edge of my seat with this book. It was always I wasn't sure what was going to happen, I wasn't sure what the plan was going to be, and I feel like there were a lot of twists, especially twists towards the end, that I wasn't really expecting. The next category is favorite book cover. There weren't a ton of book covers that spoke to me this year, but one that definitely did was Spitting Silver by Naomi Novik. This was not a book that I would consider one of my favorites of the year. As many of you know, I kind of struggled with this book. I didn't love it as much as Uprooted, but I love Uprooted's cover and this cover and how they had this fairy tale theme to them. I just love them. And I also have, because I pre-ordered this book, the foiled version of this cover that I actually have to put on. Wait, I think I did put it on, and I put this cover over it. I did. Treat to myself. I was like, where would I put that? I used the old cover to protect the new cover when I moved. This is the foil cover. Can you see it? It's so shiny. It's probably blinding you right now. It's so beautiful. So this just makes it all the better. And wow, what a great reveal. What a great unplanned reveal for this book cover. Good job, self. But I love this cover, and I still think it evokes the feeling of the book, even though the book wasn't one that I'm gonna rank in my top books of the year for the content or anything. Not that it's not good. Still a good book. Still a good book. Then we have favorite male sidekick, and this is debatable because it is the character that the book is named after, but I went with Born from Born by Jeff Vandermeer. And that is because Born doesn't really feel like the protagonist in here, Rachel does. So Rachel is the main character that you're really following in this story, and Born is this creature thing that she discovers. This is a standalone science fiction new weird book, which means that there's like a lot of, it's so hard to explain new weird. It's like there's a lot of like biotechnology and like just weird. It's a fun genre that I want to read more of actually, but because I really like it, but it's almost impossible to explain it. But she discovers, she's a scavenger, and she discovers this thing that kind of is it a person? I don't. That's the whole book. But basically, Born is this little creature that she sort of raises, and there's a lot of talk in the book about like what makes a person and monsters and all of that kind of stuff. So I really enjoyed Born. Born is super cute, and I listened to this on audiobook, and I love the audiobook narrator for this book, and the little voice she does for him is so cute. So I was really bonded to Born, even though he's dangerous and you would never actually want Born to be around you. Next category is favorite female sidekicks, and for this I went with basically all of the nuns from Red Sister and Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence. I think Apple and Kettle are my two, but I love so many of them. I think Apple and Kettle are probably my two favorites, and then Abbas Glass, who's not really even, and this is, I wouldn't call them sidekicks. These are all side characters, but they also all have kind of their own agency, and they do get perspectives throughout the story. So yeah, but they're side characters technically because known as the protagonist, and I love all of these women so much. You learn so much more about them as the series goes on, and like I said, I just enjoy this series for all of the different like relationships and everything else that's going on with the series, besides just like the wonderful kick-ass plot line and like the political intrigue and the action and all of that and the magic. It's wonderful. It's why it's being mentioned multiple times in this book awards. But I really enjoy these characters, these side characters of all the nuns that are living within this abbey that trains magical assassin nuns. What could go wrong? Then we have most unique plot / world. 2 for this. First I have The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. This was a very unexpected favorite of mine. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this book, but I really enjoy this because it's a story about dark fairy tales, and fairy tales that don't have that typical trope, and they don't follow the typical tropes. They don't necessarily teach a lesson. They're just very dark and grim, more grim than like the Grimm fairy tales are. And I found that the world of these fairy tales was really interesting and really unique, and just really like dark and atmospheric, and it just pulls you in, and I really enjoyed it. Then we have The World from Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. This takes place in an alternate future America where the indigenous gods and goddesses are wreaking havoc, and there's monsters, and you follow a monster hunter who hunts these kinds of monsters. And she herself has some of these magical abilities from this folklore, and it's so enjoyable because it's so different. A lot of urban fantasy, because this is technically urban fantasy, a lot of urban fantasy follows typical mythologies that you're used to seeing, or like the vampires, werewolves, all that kind of stuff, and this is so different and so fun. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of this series. Urban fantasy series, thankfully, are typically very long, so I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more of this world as it expands. The next category is supposed to be favorite book to movie adaptation, but I have watched none. So next category is favorite new to me author, and that is going to be Claire Legrand. Now technically I started reading Claire Legrand the very end of 2017. Winter Spell was one of the last books that I read in 2017, so I don't really count it because I didn't really know. This was really the year of Claire Legrand. Like I said, I started reading at the very end of 2017, and then I read Furyborn in the spring almost, I want to say spring or summer, and then I read Sawkill Girls in October, and I just really love Claire Legrand, and I'm going to pretty much buy everything that she writes from now on because these just, like, her books keep getting better for me, and I really enjoy what she does with villains and protagonists and their dynamics. Like, that's something that she is, like, the queen of, and that's a trope that you guys know that I really enjoy, and she just has this darkness to her writing that I really highly enjoy. So she was an author that was new to me this year that I just really fell in love with, and I met her this year. She was the only author, I think, that I went and got anything signed for at YALLFest. Highlight. The next category is Best Graphic Novel. I didn't really read a lot of graphic novels. The only graphic novels that I read were for the BookTube SFF Awards, and thankfully one of those is one that won for me. But this is, I think, similar to what... No, I didn't answer the same series last year, but I could have. No, technically I answered a couple years ago because I read the first volume a couple years ago. Let's just get to it. That was Monsters Volume 2, The Blood. I love this graphic novel series. I really need to get back on the graphic novel train. I feel like I've just ignored it for a few years. I don't know what's happened to me because I used to love them so much, so I really need to get back and catch up on a lot of series, reread a lot of things. Saga is like how many volumes in? Anyway, this is one of my favorite currently running graphic novel series. It takes place in a very unique, dark fantasy world where there's a lot of like alchemy and other kinds of magic and different races and different descendants of those races and all this political stuff going on, and there's just a lot. But the main character is sort of fused with a monster at this point, and she is also, again, like a theme here, kind of an anti-hero, kind of an anti-villain, really trying to both embrace her monstrousness but also fighting against it, and there's a lot going on and it's very elaborate. But the art in here is beautiful. It's also very much based on Japanese mythology at times, and it's just very interesting. A lot of strong female characters in here. Almost all of the societies are run by women, and it's just really cool and interesting, and I love it. So I can't wait to continue on with this series for sure. The next category is a category that I added, I think last year or the year before, and that is Best Angst. And that is a late edition, one that slipped in at the very end, and that is The Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi. This technically doesn't come out until January 15th. I'm filming this on New Year's Eve, by the way, so. But this saved my soul, as I've mentioned in numerous spots on the internet, with the angst factor. This has a relationship in here that is sort of was pre-existing. There's history to it, and the two characters are being sort of kept apart because of themselves, but also external things, and they're so drawn to each other, and there's so many scenes in here that literally stole my breath. I teared up at one point over these characters. What's going to happen in the second book with these characters, I'm already so excited for. I encourage you to watch my review that I did very recently of this book, because if you like angst, you need to have this in your life. So good. I wasn't expecting that level of angst, and I was given it as a gift, as a present, as an end of the year present to me. Then we have Best Action. And this is a two-way tie, one between the Book of the Ancestors, or Red Sister and Grey Sister by Mark Lawrence. Like I mentioned, tons of action, lots of twists and turns. I'm always on the edge of my seat. I'm always like really caring what happens with these characters, and they're pretty much always in danger, so that's a thing. But then also the second book in the Expanse series, Caliban's War by James S.A. Corey. This is the second book, like I said, in the Expanse series, which is an adult science fiction series, and there's just constant action happening with this as well. There's a lot of, I described this in my review as feeling sort of like Game of Thrones in space, because there's a lot of like political stuff happening and all of these people trying to like figure out where they sit politically, but there's zombies. In this case, there's space zombies. And you're like, there's space zombies coming for you, and you're caring about the dumb shit. But like, there's nonstop action, whether it's with the political stuff going on or the space zombie virus happening, and I'm just really looking forward to continuing on with the series, and it's still one of my favorites, even though it takes me like a year to a year and a half between each installment to read them. Hopefully not with the next one. I'm getting better about TBR stuff, hopefully, but yeah, action nonstop, love it. Then we have Best Standalone, and in the past I have always devoted this category to contemporary books, but one, I haven't read a lot of contemporary books this year at all. I think this is the least amount of contemporary books that I've probably ever read. And two, there's two other books that are not contemporary that were standout for me as far as standalones this year. The first one was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. A lot of you probably heard of this book because it was sweeping through BookTube a couple of years ago when it first came out, but I read this on audiobook. Oh my gosh. It's an adult post-apocalyptic story, and it follows a Shakespearean troupe that is traveling around after this flu has basically wiped out most of the Earth's population, but there's also flashbacks to what was happening when the flu was breaking out, and even before that, of all these characters, and also characters that kind of intersected with their different lives. I was so engrossed in this because that synopsis, I heard that synopsis for years, and I was like, that doesn't sound that interesting to me. Like, I don't think that's going to be very fun. I was so connected and so engrossed, and even though you know some of these characters, like, especially if you're getting them in flashbacks, like, don't make it, you're still, like, so connected to them, and it's just like, oh, it's so interesting. So I really enjoyed this book, and it totally lived up to the hype for me. Even though there was so much hype, it totally lived up to it for me, and it's beautiful. And just, yeah, I had moments where I was sitting in my car after I'd gotten to my destination, because I listened to most of my audiobooks in the car, and I couldn't get out because I needed to know what else was going to happen with these characters. My second favorite standalone was Saw Kill Girls by Claire Legrand. Oh man, this is an adult fantasy horror book, and I don't read horror. I will leave my review on the screen for this book so I can talk more in depth about it there. But this really blew me away because it wasn't really about all of the like horror aspects or the scary stuff. It centers around this island where every year girls go missing, and these 3 girls are part of what's happening as these girls are going missing, and kind of their connection to that part of the plot and their connection to each other. And what's so amazing about this story, 1, the writing is wonderful. 2, the atmosphere is great because it's one of those stories where the setting is kind of its own character. And then you have all these themes that I really deeply enjoy. You have these villain and main character dynamics again, which is really interesting and really well done within this book because I wasn't expecting that kind of dynamic. And you also just have a lot of focus on femininity and female power and expectations for women and sexuality and turning fear into power and all of that. And it was so good. So I am not a horror person. I am not into scary stuff. This was about as much scary as I could handle. But if you want to give it a go at all based on that synopsis, I would highly recommend it. If I were to actually rank a lot of these books, which I'm not going to do, but this would probably be in the top 3 easily because I'm still like very deeply moved by it. Then we have Best Ensemble Cast, and that would again go to The Gilded Wolves by Roshni Chokshi. I just really enjoyed this cast of nerds trying their best. And I tend to enjoy large ensemble casts anyway, but this was just, again, so well done. I was so attached to all of them. They all have very unique personalities, very unique motivations, and I just really want to know even more about all of their backstories. And the last category is Best Finale, and this is, again, another two-way tie. And one that people are probably going to be a little, like, surprised about that I'm actually doing this as a tie, but don't judge me. I really enjoyed both of these finales for different reasons, and that's why they both had to be in this category. The first one is The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin, the finale for the Broken Earth trilogy. This was moving and heart-wrenching and everything that I was hoping it would be, but also tore my heart out, and just the perfect finale to a groundbreaking, award-winning, wonderful series. So this obviously had to make the list. There's just so many things about these characters and their character arcs that they've gone through the whole series, and just how all of that culminated was in a beautiful but bittersweet way. And finally, we have A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. This is the last book in the Darker Shade of Magic series, a series that I have historically really disliked, and I still dislike the first 2 books in the series. I hate the second book in the series. I almost didn't continue, but I had to for the BookTube SFF Awards, and I adored this finale. I think because it didn't really focus so much on Lila, or even really Kel, and that it expanded all of the characters that it was focusing on, and I really enjoy a lot of these side characters in this series. I think this finale was really fulfilling and really lived up to what I expect out of a finale, where I want some heartbreak and I want there to be loss and I want the characters to go through it and to really like go through stuff, especially if there's like a war or something, like the world's gonna end or whatever. Like, I don't want everyone to have a blissful, happy life. And I thought this was a really good conclusion. Technically, this is going to be continuing on into a second part of the series, but this trilogy itself is contained, and then there's going to be more within this world that I think some of these characters are going to cross over into and all of that, but that's technically a separate trilogy within like a larger world series. So this is the last of those books, and I am as shocked as you are that a book from this series made it onto a favorites list for me. But that is it for my 2018 book awards. These are my favorite books of the year. So comment down below, let me know where some of your favorite books of the year would be as far as different categories from this little awards presentation. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.